Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone out to our Layton City Council meeting this evening. It is June 6th, and we have a fairly close start on time for tonight. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and start our meeting with our traditional prayer and pledge. And tonight, that will be conducted by Councilmember Roberts.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'll offer an invocation, and then I'll invite everyone to join me in the pledge. Our dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful to gather here this evening to conduct the business of this great city. Father, we're grateful to be residents of this city and live among the great nature that we enjoy here, the history that we enjoy. Grateful, Father, for those that paved the way before us, built this area and in this community. I'm grateful, Father, for the residents that strive to make this a great place to live. We thank Thee, Father, for the city employees that work hard to keep us safe and provide the services needed that we enjoy living here. Father, we're grateful for all of our blessings that Thou bestows upon us. We pray that Thou will watch over us this night as we make decisions that affect those who live here, that we will be wise and judicious, that we will be thoughtful to those who are affected by our decisions. We ask Thee for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
If you all please rise. Follow me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Roberts. I appreciate that. Tonight, I'd like to acknowledge the fact that we have one of our youth council members with us, Lydia Garza. So, Lydia, we appreciate you being on the youth council for us, but would you mind taking just a quick minute and tell us about yourself, what school you go to, and what your aspirations are?
So I go to Layton High. I am part of Layton City Youth Council. Right now I'm looking into government, and I don't know if I want to do that. And I'm also looking into a career for towards like math and data analyzing. But yeah, I do dance and I play the piano.
Sweet. Talent. I love it. That's good. And like I said, we appreciate all your volunteer hours too. I've seen her at many events helping us out throughout the city. Okay, Council, we have 2 sets of minutes that we need to approve. So if there's no corrections to them, then I'd look for a motion or someone to make that motion regarding the sets of minutes.
Mayor, I'd make a motion that we adopt the minutes for the Layton City Council work meeting March 21st, 2024, and the Layton City Council meeting April 4th, 2024.
Okay. Do I have it's been moved in second that we adopt the minutes as written. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on down to our municipal announcements. So with that, I know that this is a busy time of year for our Parks and Rec, and I know Communities at Care's got a few things going on. So Councilmember Roberts, let's start with the Parks and Rec.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, a lot going on. We've got Liberty Days just about a month away. Full day of events starting early in the morning with breakfast. The whole list of events can be found on our website. Also in our flyer that comes in with the municipal billing. Starting the Sunday before the 4th of July, June 30th, here at the amphitheater, we'll have our Voices of Liberty concert. Always a great event with the symphony, the Philharmonic, the County Philharmonic Symphony, and we'll honor our hometown heroes. You can also, nominations still open? Yes, you can also go to the Parks and Recreation website and nominate hometown heroes in our community that we will honor at that evening. Again, go to laytoncity.org in the community events and see the whole listing of all the events. Also tomorrow, Layton is lucky to host Weber State's Wild Sevens 7-on-7 football tournament. I believe 40 different teams will be competing, starting at 8 a.m. with the varsity teams, and JV and sophomore will be at 2:30 p.m. So Ellison Park, go watch some great football.
Okay, that's great. Before we move on to some of our other items, let me just kind of go in order, because that's tomorrow, Friday, for the football. But then this coming Saturday, out here in our Layton's Common Park, we have the Sounds of Freedom car show. And this car show has been going on for many years, and we appreciate all those folks that sponsor it so that we can, have a fun event in our city. And anyone who has an old car or motorcycles or anything that they'd like to display, you're welcome to come. The entries are free. And preferably, they want you to pre-register. And it's through the shadetree@gmail.com. You could contact them. Or if you see any posters around town, there's a QR code on there to help you register your vehicle. And they're going to start loading those vehicles on the lawn at 7 a.m. And the car show gets underway at 10 a.m. And in addition to the car show, there'll be food trucks, raffles, auction items, live music. And the key thing about this car show this year, which is we're very fortunate here at Layton City that every year they identify themselves, the producers of this car show, on who they want their contribution funding to go to. And this year they've acknowledged the fact that Layton City is really trying hard to focus our area in front of the Vietnam Memorial Wall to create a Freedom Plaza. So this year, a lot of the funding that they raise will actually go towards the construction of that Freedom Plaza. So I hope we get a lot of people that come out and, show your patriotism as well to all of those folks that serve in our armed services. So, again, it actually starts at 9 a.m. on Saturday and goes until 5 p.m. Okay. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor, do you mind?
Yeah.
Speaking of those who served, today's the 80th anniversary of the D-Day invasion of Europe. So this morning I was teaching a class on VA benefits, and so my mind has been thinking about the veterans who went through hell to try to make sure that we could have these types of events and do all that. So there's not many of those World War II veterans around anymore. But if you know one, tell them thanks, or any veteran that you see, to thank them for the services, including Mr. Tudor here, who's with us.
Okay, thank you. Great. Anyone else have any announcements they'd like to share? Okay, if not, then let's go ahead and jump down to our citizens' comments. So if anyone in the audience would like to address the council, you're more than welcome to. If you are here to speak on any of the items that are under our public hearing, then we will ask that you wait until that point in time to speak on regarding those items under the public hearing. Otherwise, you're welcome to come up and come to the mic and just state your name and for our records.
So I'm Ross Marshall, Mayor and council members. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm the board member on the Davis Arts Council, and just wanted to show our appreciation and support for you all, and thank you for your support to the Davis Arts Council. We know you've supported it through the budget and through the ramp, and we just want to tell you thank you, and we appreciate all you do for us. So thanks.
Well, thank you, and thank everyone on the committee for what they do for our city and the combined efforts they show working with our Parks and Rec, as well as far as coordinating like the Friday night films and a lot of the active pages and some of those ancillary items that people just don't realize that you guys do for us. So thank you. Okay, anyone else? Okay, you're welcome to come up and just state your name only.
Tom Tudor of Layton City, Utah. We have for years gone over there in recreation and asked, and there's no name upper there, a list, nothing. You know, they used to put that up, the girls would go over there and would have 11 different people that's on the recreation there. Where do I find it this year?
Are you talking about the members of the commission?
No, just
Or the
public, just
Oh, you're talking about the concerts that will be performed over here?
right. Yeah, on
So
Sunday night. I wondered if anybody knows that we've been doing that for 25 years until now. Did they move somewhere?
They have, and I'll be happy to answer it unless our liaison wants to. But we do talk about the
Tom, they've moved, and for 25 years they didn't do it like they used to. The last maybe 4 or 5, but you can just go to the DAC.
What's the website?
Davis Arts Council on the internet, and then you can pull up the programs, whether you want to look at Sunday night programs, which start this Sunday, and whether you want to look at the events that are paid events and that. So
Tommy, go to.
I met the building there.
Yeah, they're gone from there.
The doors are locked. The chairs are all gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's why I come here. Somebody here will hear all these 300 people that calling us on the telephones. Well, they don't have any banners up there like they've had. No. They don't have any telephones. No.
Yeah, they have telephones, Tom.
All of you people.
Tom.
Yeah.
They have telephones and they have the internet. And if you want to talk to Ross,
come and get me. I've got 30 or 40.
Okay, this isn't, Tommy, this isn't a debate. We appreciate your input, and that's very good information. And luckily, we have a representative here from the Arts Council that can take that information back. But in addition to that, they do have the website, and I'm going to have Councilmember Smith Edmondson tell you exactly what that website is.
Do you want to write it down? It's davisarts.org.
And their new office is located just north of the mall in the LSI building. So it's kitty corner from Roosters. That's their new office.
I went there and talked to one lady that was there working, and she didn't like that. Everybody was gone, not working. And I thought, well, somebody in Layton, Utah ought to be knowing something.
yeah.
They did when I was in the police department every day.
And Tom, the concert on Sunday is The Real Folk, and it's at 7 p.m. and it'll be just over here. So they do have a free concert this Sunday.
Good, on this Sunday?
Yes.
Good. Got a lot of people
Or excuse me, on the 16th. I'm sorry.
that will keep calling me, where do I go and what time? Okay. That's all they need. So I couldn't get it. And if I couldn't find it, I didn't want Myrna to get mad at me. She's sitting right here.
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
We'll get it taken care of because
Okay.
I don't want to be walking around this place for a month.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate your input. We're gonna move our meeting along here, and seeing that there's no other citizens comment, I want to move on to our consent items. And tonight we only have one item on our consent agenda, which is regarding our sanitary sewer plan and our wastewater master plan. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Mr. Steve Jackson to go through a pretty extensive explanation of this for all of us. So thank you.
Mayor, Council, it's good to be with you tonight. Appreciate the time that you've given me to talk about this. Hopefully it won't be too boring, but engineers sometimes like to get in the weeds. So as the mayor mentioned, sanitary sewer management plan and wastewater master plan, I want to acknowledge the engineers at Bowen and Collins and Associates that helped put this plan together, as well as our city staff, not just in the engineering department, but also planning and management services in the part of the plans that pertain to them as well. So just some background on why we do these plans, specifically this one. I mean, it's good policy that we do these, but the Utah Sewer Management Program is administered by the Department of Environmental Quality. And as part of that, they do require that we have, as a city, a sewer system management plan, or an SSMP, and then a system evaluation and capacity assurance plan, or a CCAP. So we have the sanitary sewer management plan, which covers the SSMP requirements, and then the wastewater master plan covers our CCAP requirements as we go forward. So I won't spend a lot of time talking about the sanitary sewer management plan, but the components of that plan are just general requirements for how we manage our sanitary sewer system, operations and maintenance program, the sanitary sewer design standards that we have, the overflow action plan that we have if we do have a backup or an incident. And then we also have grease, oil, and sand management program that we take care of to help prevent backups in our sewer system. And then, as I mentioned, the Layton City System Evaluation and Capacity Assurance, or CCAP, which is the wastewater management plan component of that. So you all have that in your packets, and it's available for people that want to get that if they want to. We do certify that is available to the Division of Environmental Quality so that they can look at it if they want to as well. With the wastewater master plan, this is where I'll spend most of my time talking tonight. We evaluate the existing system similar to most of the master plans that we do, or all of the master plans. We look at our existing conditions. We look at our future growth. We do some hydraulic modeling so that we can ensure that the growth that we are going to see is taken care of properly, that the existing conditions are being met at the level of service that we expect, and then we go and we look at what needs to be fixed or changed and updated as we go forward. And then we also look at the rate structure that the system has in order to keep it viable and to ensure that we have the necessary revenues that we need to continue moving forward. So I'll jump into this. A lot of these slides are just some maps and things, but this is the map of our existing system. All the lines that are in that light blue color are 8-inch sewer lines. The majority of our pipes are 8-inch pipes. There's almost 200 miles of 8-inch sewer pipes. The whole system is close to 220 miles of pipes. So if you take that into consideration, there's a lot of pipes the city manages. Some of the bigger pipes that you see on that screen are the North Davis Sewer District trunk lines. They do a great job with collecting from us, and then they treat it at their system. And so we are a part of their district. So that's why you see the majority of the large lines are theirs, and then we are mostly the smaller size lines. With the existing conditions in the city, we look at growth. We use the Wasatch Front Regional Council traffic analysis zones, I guess you'll call those. It's kind of weird that you use traffic zones to do a wastewater master plan, but there's a lot of data in those zones that help us estimate existing densities, existing populations, socioeconomic things that help us to take that information, convert that into a wastewater, what would you call it, wastewater production schedule. I'm trying to be delicate here. I don't know what the best words are. Wastewater production rates. So each household we estimate is 182 gallons per day of wastewater that they generate, and that's equivalent to an ERU. We call that an equivalent residential unit. Per capita, it's 57 gallons per day, and per employee, if you're in a commercial area, it's 35. So the lower chart there shows the population, Wasatch Front estimates that we have all the way out to 2060, and then the adjusted population based on what we view as the potential growth that could be in some of these areas. And then they calculate all that out to the table to the right, and you end up with million gallons per day of wastewater production in the city. So 5.88 is our current, or 6.52, I guess, is our current estimate here around 2023. And then we anticipate we'll be at around 11 million gallons a day sometime in the 2060 time frame. So as we move to the next slide, this is the future growth graph. So this first one is the existing conditions that we have, and then you can see they extrapolate those out onto the future growth. Now, the areas that are kind of hatched in that red border and black, those are areas that we specifically think there are changes to what the Wasatch Front Regional Council numbers are projecting. They have some limitations on how they can distribute population growth in their models and things like that based on what they do. And so we try and do a deeper dive there. So we know there are potential business centers, town centers, things like that in our city that we anticipate will see different growth. And so we want to make sure we're looking at what's actually happening in the city and not just what we hope is happening. So that's where those hatched areas come into play, is their adjustments based on discussions with our planning group and what we think the anticipated densities could be. It doesn't mean that that's what they will be. It just means that we're trying to plan to make sure that we do have the capacities that we need as we go forward. So with all of that, those maps come out, and you can chart a pretty graph here that shows what the previous master plan shows in the black line. The blue line is what Wasatch Front Regional Council would project in their populations, but the red line is what we would anticipate seeing based on our current estimates of where we're seeing growth and things like that in the city. So you can see it's a little bit front loaded in that 2030, a little bit steeper, but then it flattens out a little bit more, and then we end up slightly higher, I think about 6,000 ERUs more than what the Wasatch Front Regional Council does out to 2060. So after we do all of that to kind of figure out, hey, where we got with population and where the water's going to, or the wastewater is going to be produced, we break the model down and we show all these different sub areas. So this is where all the sewer systems flow and which pipes they go into. We use a model to project the diurnal pattern. So every 24 hours, we anticipate that these are the plans. You can see the black line shows kind of the average pattern. Most people aren't using wastewater at 4 a.m., but there's a lot of people using wastewater at 11 a.m. and 12 a.m. or 12 p.m. So we do have one kind of production facility at Kroger that we model specifically because they do have an impact. And so they have a different diurnal pattern in there because they are a substantial producer of wastewater. They're our biggest water user too. And so we want to make sure that we're providing the capacities that they need to be able to continue operating in the city. So then after we take into account all the modeling, they run the model and the system, and they say, where are we at with our existing capacities? This is the map of where we are today. There's a little bit of capacity we're watching there on Sugar Street, just south of Kroger, and then also on Gordon Avenue, just east of I-15 there that we have. And so the areas in blue are great. They have a lot of capacity in them. As they get more red, that's when we start looking at whether or not we need to do some projects to move things forward. Then we look at a 10-year plan. So the system capacity in the 10-year window, you can see there's a few areas that show up in kind of that reddish, orangish color. Those are areas that we would watch over these next 10 years, make sure that we have projects planned to be able to address those capacities as the development occurs. And then we'll have to match the densities that would occur with those developments with the need for these projects so that we're not overbuilding, but we're not underbuilding either. So we look at the short term, and then we look at the future build out, which is in the 2060 timeframe. You can see there's some areas that show up a little bit more. That's because we anticipate the densities in some of these areas will be higher than what our previous master plans were anticipating. And we all know the way the state is currently looking at housing and those things. We anticipate that will continue and be a trend that will move forward. So as we look at all those areas, they come up with a plan. We look at that plan together and we say what projects need to be done. So all of the lines that are in purple on this map, they've got project numbers next to them. Those are all the areas that we anticipate sometime between now and in the 2060 timeframe will be a project that we will need to address. So we broke those down into kind of short-term windows, which would be the 7 to 10 year timeframe, and then anything beyond that 10-year timeframe is in the lower section under long-term. We show that we need about $5.16 million in project funding for those 4 projects on Sugar Street, Gentile, and Gordon.
And then there's an additional 13.57 million projected that we would need in the future for projects beyond that long-term plan. One of the recommendations that we had a discussion with the consultants was whether or not we need to implement or enact a sewer impact fee. There currently is a sewer impact fee that is collected by North Davis Sewer District for their facilities. Again, the sewer impact fee is only for projects that are considered system improvements, so enlargements to the system above what a general development would require. So as you recall, in our map, we have over 1 million feet of 8-inch pipe. The majority of our developments only require 8-inch pipes, but when you put 8-inch pipes into other 8-inch pipes, eventually you need a bigger pipe at the end, right? So luckily for us, North Davis Sewer District has the majority of these large lines. They've incurred substantial capital costs to put those in, and they manage them. And so up to this point, we haven't needed a sewer impact fee, but we felt like it was prudent to look into whether or not a sewer impact fee would be necessary and prudent. And so we feel like we will be better off if we run the analysis and then bring that back to you for consideration in the future. And so just wanted to point that out, that right now there is no impact fee, but we will do an analysis and then bring that back to you for discussion and talk about whether it's the right time to enact one. So then that's kind of the growth related portion of the plan. Then we have a system renewal portion of the plan, or maintenance, I guess you call it. This is a map of the pipe ages based on the subdivisions when they were installed. So you can see the areas that are kind of the warmer colors, the reds and the oranges. They're much older pipe systems than the blues. And so as we look at the system, we say, how much is it going to cost to maintain this system into the future? And so you can tell, it's kind of an interesting pattern, but you can see kind of where the growth has occurred throughout the city over time. And so overall, if we had to replace all of our system today, it would cost over $500 million. That's not going to happen, right? Over 1 year, but we assume a 100-year system service life, and that's not out of the question with the pipe materials that we're using today and things like that. 100 years is feasible, but not all pipes last 100 years, and so we know we need to kind of estimate some of these things. But if you needed to replace 1% of your pipes every year, and you had to replace them, similar to our roads, we talk a lot about rehabilitation or replacement. The replacement is always much more expensive than a rehabilitation. And so if we were to try and replace every pipe, then we would be looking at an annual budget of $5 million a year. If we could rehabilitate every single pipe in our system, which we'd love to do, we'd only need about $1 million a year. Rehabilitation consists of slip lining, doing some things that you don't have to dig the roads up for. So we're seeing, savings of 30 to 40%, in some cases where over digging up the road and inconveniencing people, all those things. So we've taken an estimate of about 50% could be replaced and 50% would need to be rehabilitated to try and come up with what our needed budget is. And so that lands right about $3 million a year that we would be looking to spend on the system renewal going forward. So if you take the map of all the ages of the pipes and you graph that out and you say, okay, if we need to replace all of these things, how does that line up? And so this chart shows in the gray what would need to be replaced versus what would need to be rehabilitated, or what could be rehabilitated. And then that blue line that's dashed there is the $3 million average that we would try and target for doing these projects. So one of the things to point out is that there are some years where that line is lower or higher than what our anticipated costs would need to be. But there's some years in there where it's substantially lower than what our costs would need to be. And so our goal would be to fund this system at a level that we could go in and actually maybe proactively move some of those projects that would have to be a replacement into a rehabilitation standpoint and keep them from spiking up in those areas like we show on that level. So moving forward, the rate analysis came back and said, okay, what do we need to do to be able to fund the system and these improvements and projects that we're talking about? And so just to remind everybody, the goal here is to maintain a reliable sewer service at affordable rates for the customers. I mean, we're not trying to make money on this. We're just trying to maintain the system and make sure that it, nobody likes sewage in their house. Nobody likes sewage in the road. I mean, it just is what it is. And we've seen some substantial increase over the years in inflation. I think we talked about it in water. We've seen it everywhere. So maintaining stable revenue generation to make sure we have the funds available when we need them, and then minimizing our long-term costs by eliminating debt. If we tried to run it and had to spike in those years, we would have to be bonding for things, and I don't think that's really prudent for the way the city has operated in the past. So with that, the consultants have run a rate analysis. They've recommended, as Tracy mentioned in the work meeting, an 8.2% increase over the next 3 years in order to fund this program. And then moving forward, this is what the graph would look like. So we would match the revenue generated with the amount of funds we were collecting for those first 3 years until it got to the level where we could fund those first full $3 million a year in projects. So what does that look like for us if we change these rates at this 8.2%? The existing is $29.45 per month, and remember, a large chunk of that goes straight through to the sewer district, and then we keep a small portion of that. So it would move to $31.86 would be the proposed rate for this coming July 1st. As we talk about the budget, Tracy can go into that a little bit more. And then for the churches, schools, commercial, it would move from $2.25 per 1,000 gallons up to $2.43 per 1,000 gallons. So then I do want to make a note here that if once we bring back the sewer impact fees and if you adopt those, the rates in whatever year it is that we take a look at that, we would reevaluate those to make sure that we're adjusting for those impact fee revenues, so we're not piling those on top of these existing rates going forward. So with that, I guess I got to do the official part of this here and say this is Resolution 2420 for your consideration. Adoption of the Sanitary Sewer Management Plan and Wastewater Master Plan update. And the staff would recommend the council adopt Resolution 2420, authorizing the adoption of the updated Sanitary Sewer Management Plan and Wastewater Master Plan, and authorize the city manager to sign the necessary documents. So with that, is there any questions I can answer?
Council, do you have any questions on this?
Slides you want me to go back to?
I just want to first clarify that the request is to adopt the plan, but the rates that were presented was based on a study, but that is not something that we are voting on tonight, correct?
No, not in the plan recommends those rates, but the budget is the separate discussion, and you will get to choose whether you increase those or adopt those as part of the budget. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So on the system renewal that you talked about, I'm just curious how that all the data is gathered as far as the pipes, because the pipes we don't see, we know the age of the pipes. I was thinking about, our streets. We have a third party once in a while come in and assess all of our roads, grade them.
Yeah.
Is there a third party that comes in, or do we just do that ourselves?
Both, actually. So we do have a third party. We use a system. It's an acoustic system to actually go through half of the city each year. Relatively new technology, but they assess each one of the pipes using an acoustic sound wave they send from one manhole to the next, and it gives them the readings that give those calculations. But then also we have a cleaning and televising program with one of our local contractors that they come in and they video the lines after they've been cleaned, and they give it an assessment rating as well. So each time we go to either replace or rehabilitate a pipe, we're using all of that information and that data to figure out what the proper treatment is for it, similar to the roads, like you mentioned. Some need an overlay, some need a slurry seal. Sometimes these need to be dug up and replaced because maybe a joint is separated or something like that, but others can be slip lined at a significant savings for us. So, and then our own city public workshops, they have a camera van and a cleaning truck, and so they go out and assess areas of when they see a trouble area or something like that as well.
So that graph you showed with that has all the spikes and that's all of that data goes into that.
Yeah, that's in there. This graph is specific to the age of the pipes, and we're working to refine all of this data into a more manageable system. But that is where a lot of that comes from. You know, newer pipes tend to have less problems than older pipes, and so that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good, Mayor. Thank you. Steve, you mentioned the consultants recommend, and this is, by the way, well done. So thank you for the presentation, and thank you for the logic behind the logical movement from the different topics to the rate analysis. What's your opinion on where we are with our system?
To be honest, we're a little shy in our reserve fund right now. I'll just be honest with you. The inflation has hit everybody extremely hard, and so projects are costing a lot more than they used to. We feel like this is a reasonable recommendation. We don't feel like we just saw them say, "Hey, this is what you should be doing, so you should do it." But at the same time, I think when we talk with Alex a lot, he is really concerned about, you know, making sure we're providing the services that we need to provide them at, and doing it in the most cost-effective way possible. And so we would recommend that we adopt this plan and this rate structure to get us to a point where we do have adequate reserves, that we do have the funding to make sure we're keeping up on our maintenance, our rehabilitations, because we do feel like the rehabilitation is going to save, in the long run, a substantial amount of money each year. So, yeah.
Go ahead. Do you know the feasibility of how quick or any sort of financial impact the sewer impact fee would have, and if that would potentially alleviate the perpetual, 1.6%? Because 3 years of getting us to where we need to be. What we've typically done with water and other funds is that we'll have these increases, and then we'll wait and see how revenues look. Mm-hmm. And so is the idea that and maybe it's too premature to talk about this, but is the idea that the sewer impact fee, like you said, you're not going to double those up, that you would reassess. Is that a process where we could have an idea of a sewer impact fee sooner rather than later, so that we could understand maybe what it would look like short term for the rates?
Yeah, they did actually give an estimate of about $400 per home or per ERU that would be assessed, but there is a very specific legal process that we have to go through to do that study and get all of those answers. So my feel is that the 1.6 is really kind of an inflationary adjustment number. Whether we decide to do that or not is up to us. But I think some of the discussions in the previous meeting about what happens if you don't, and then to catch up, right? So I don't anticipate it's going to be a huge swing in the rates, but it would have an impact, because some of these projects you're seeing the $5 million, because we can only collect impact fees for that first 10-year window. That $5 million would be able to be reduced out of the user rates. I would anticipate Tracy and I would work together to calculate those numbers, bring those back to you, and show you that, and then possibly that third year of the 8.2 would be the one that we would try and adjust in if we can't get it to you before the second adjustment.
Yeah. And thank you for that. The reason why is mostly a lot of this is based on growth and the concept of growth paying for growth, right? And having the residents just have to continue to have their rates increased because there's more development. I know it's for a whole system. We have these discussions with water. Maybe a question for Alex. Is the concept of sewer impact fees, is this something that's applicable other communities, other cities doing this? Is there a reason, and this isn't obviously I'm not saying this rhetorically, is there a reason why we haven't done it in the past? And would you be in favor of us looking at that portion of this, the sewer impact fee, moving forward?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember. Absolutely. We've had this discussion on several occasions, robust discussion back and forth to try to explore as Steve said, the the best and fairest and most responsible way to deal with it. I think the reason I asked that very question is part of the discussion, and I think historically, and Steve talked about this in his earlier comments, is that historically the system type improvements, the big improvements, have been taken care of by the sewer district. And that's what impact fees are meant to be, is the cost to put in improvements that benefit beyond just a single project. They're community-wide benefits. And in the past, the city has generally been involved in that 8-inch standard, right, within a subdivision and tying into a district line. But with the growth that's happening and the densities that are happening, Stephen, correct me, we're creeping into the situation where we're not just going to have 8-inch and then real big lines, but there needs to be some middle-sized lines that are above the minimum standard that help carry the volume out of those subdivision areas to those bigger lines. And it's a more efficient way than doing, building more big lines. And so that's really been the logic, is how do we, and you touched on it perfectly, is how do we balance, don't put those costs of development and system improvements on the backs of existing ratepayers, and to strive to have that proper balance that new development is paying its fair share and the existing residents are paying their fair share. And so it's really something that, from a fairness perspective, we've never tried to press it because we didn't think there was a legitimate justification. And now we think that there is, given this new modeling and the density that is being driven by a whole host of policies and directives in terms of housing, the densities and the volumes that are going to be created are more significant than they were under earlier plans. Some of that we have control over, some of it we don't. But that's a long question. But yeah, we think it makes perfect sense and is the fairest approach for the existing residents.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Seeing if there's no questions, then I'd bring it back to the council for action regarding Resolution 24-20.
Mayor, I'd make a motion that we adopt Resolution 24-20.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we adopt the resolution. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We'll now go on to our public hearing portion of our meeting. We do have 2 items on our public hearing. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Tracy Probert, who is our finance director, that's going to talk about the first item, which is the compensation increase for specific offices.
Yeah, Mayor, members of the council, just to give you a little background, in the general session of the legislature earlier this year, Senate Bill 91 was passed, and that amended Utah Code 10.3.818 regarding city employee salaries. And what it did is it required that each municipality now hold a separate public hearing. Normally our wage increases and things are just part of the budget and budget process, which we also have a public hearing tonight on that. But now we have to hold a separate public hearing regarding increases. And I put a slide up here and a list of the offices and officers and that were addressed in that bill, ranging from the mayor to the city treasurer. And so that's why that appendix is added to the ordinance that was presented. It was mentioned, and so I would recommend that as soon as I'm done talking, then we hold a public hearing regarding this, and then we'll be able to fulfill the requirements of that law. But it was also mentioned that these things are adopted as part of the budget. And so we did present an ordinance related to this tonight, but it may actually be a better recommendation from me that we postpone adopting that ordinance tonight and that we just adopt this as part of the budget. And I can see if Councilman, does that sound reasonable to you? Or city attorney, I'm pointing out over there, but there was some discussion around that.
Yeah,
and
that
so
works.
it would seem that might be more appropriate. And looking into this in between meetings, it would seem that was the intention as well, is that we have to hold the public hearing, but then we adopt the salary increases and the budget for those as part of the budget. So I don't know if that made any sense at all.
Yeah, we still have to adopt the ordinance because the law does state that it has to be, this has to be adopted by ordinance, but that can be done along with the budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Nope.
All right.
Sorry for the confusion.
No, that's okay.
So I would just propose at this time that we open a public hearing regarding compensation increases for officers of the city.
Okay. Okay. Council, do you want to make a motion to open the public hearing at this time?
I move that we open the public hearing.
Okay.
At this time.
Is that a second?
That was a second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll be legal here. Okay, so the public hearing is now open regarding the compensation for specific officers. So if there's anyone in the audience that's wished to speak to that, you're more than welcome. And in addition to that, council, if you have any questions or comments, you're welcome to speak as well. Okay.
This is something that we had a good discussion about in our work meeting. And after we've had the discussion, since it's the first time, I actually had a chance to review some of the market survey data about where we're at. And again, it's always a difficult position to be put in because, we're could be seen as self-serving, and I understand that. And so being, I guess, cognizant of that, when I reviewed the idea of reviewing our salaries and seeing them, making sure they're aligning with market conditions, I think that's important. But I also think, at least for the council, looking over what our current compensation is as compared to some of the other cities, it's not too far off from West Jordans, the Murrays, the South Jordans of the world. And so I think that perhaps, in my mind anyway, that I don't know if it's necessarily something that requires a change, at least in my mind, at least for the council. I think that the mayor's salary is not as in line with maybe some of the other cities, the South Jordans, Orams of the world. And so I'm not sure I would feel comfortable, at least of myself, having reviewed this, having our discussions beforehand. I don't think we're so out of line that we need to really do anything at this point, at least for the city council. So my recommendation maybe would be, and kind of where I'm at on this, is that perhaps we just move the mayor's and leave the city council as it is. The mayor, we've moved up your salary before because of all the work that you do on the outside. And I think that if it's still not aligning with where we're at with other cities with similar makeup, I think that would be something as a council voting to potentially get her, or the mayor, not her specifically, but the mayor as an office to where the mayor should be. I don't really necessarily see the city council as, when I see the analysis, that we're really that much different. And there's a part of me that feels, obviously, that Councilmember Smith Edmondson said this in the meeting, that there's really never a good time to raise it, right? Raise your own salaries. Who gets to do that, And so we don't seek this opportunity. But I think that it may be that this particular time, where we just basically, our previous discussion was a rate increase, a fee increase for residents for the next 3 years, that I think, I'm not sure I would feel comfortable saying that I don't see there's really that big of a problem with where we're at by being in any hurry to raise city council salaries, considering we're going to be asking the users of the sewer system, of which all of us are, to be paying a little bit more. So it's not necessarily that I've changed my mind. I think we just had this discussion. It's the first time we've had it tonight, but that would be my 2 cents on it. Is I think that the mayor's salary, I think there's a reason for that maybe to move, but I don't necessarily think that the city council salary is in dire need of being moved at this time. So those are my thoughts on it, and I'll leave it to the rest of the council to provide theirs.
Does anyone else wish to comment on the rate?
Thank you, Mayor. I was similar to Councilman Bloxham in the previous meeting. Just I guess I'm echoing now my feelings that the council salaries are. I mean, these cities that we are compared against. I don't know what they do. I don't know what those council members do or don't do, and so I can only gauge from what we do. And it is a sacrifice. It is time. I know that none of us do this because there's a paycheck. It's more a stipend. It's to reimburse for some of that time. And I appreciate the fact that there is a little bit of a reimbursement. That's helpful. But the time that I put in, and I don't, and maybe you all are here all the time. I'm not. But I feel like what I do, where I am, the meetings I go to, the conferences that we have to go to, the responsibilities that I have, that's a fair. If you take that and prorate that back the other way, I believe it's reasonable and fair at this time. So I don't. Again, I stated it earlier. I'm not comfortable moving the salaries. If anything, especially I didn't want, since it's lumped in with lumped in is not the right term, but you understand, with these city officials, I don't want to, I would want that separate. In that, I'm not saying that I don't believe that the cost of living increases for the city officials and the merit increases that we've already talked about. We've had meetings, budget meetings, and the reasons why. And I wouldn't want that construed that I don't agree with all of that because I do. I feel like, and it's not keeping up with inflation. I understand that. And I think the employees of the city understand that as well, but it's doing what we can at this time. And so, I don't know how we break that up, if we do break that up in this ordinance, but those are my thoughts right now. Thanks.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
That's why I asked the mayor. Councilmember Morris, are you thinking that there would be an Appendix A that would have all of the city employees, and then an Appendix B if we were to do anything for mayor and city council, just so that it's not all in the same line and lumped together? Is that something that you're thinking about, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know how we could, because I don't know what we're going to decide tonight or moving forward.
I just mean, presentation wise, that it could be Appendix A is this, Appendix B is that, but that way it's broken out. Okay.
Any other comments on this? I mean, I know we had a lengthy discussion in the other room on it.
So I only have two thoughts about it. One is, prior to this this bill being passed, I think we were thinking about maybe a cost of living type of, increase, which would be similar to what the staff has, and just kind of, as Councilmember Morris said, not necessarily in line with inflation, but at least identifying and understanding that we know everything is increasing. And so for a mayor and city council to remain flat would just bring those positions to be completely out of whack at some other time in the future. I am still comfortable with something like that. Also, because our form of government is similar to Orem, South Jordan, West Valley, maybe even looking at just those three cities. And I know the form of government doesn't necessarily affect the city council. It's more about the mayor, city manager, and what they do. But instead of including all of the other cities that were included in the calculation, maybe seeing what it looks like with just those three, and what that might look like. And one thing I just want to note again, and then I'll be done. What we discussed in the previous meeting is that, to be completely clear, this is about a position, not about individuals. So none of us up here, and I presume any in the audience and those watching would likely not feel comfortable discussing if you're going to give yourself a raise. But this would be about positions and about making sure that the citizens of Layton who want to run for office at some point in time would feel confident that they could do that if they still needed to have a job, if they couldn't hold a full-time job, that they'd be able to do due diligence to this type of a position, because regardless of the amount of time we may think we're going to spend doing these types of positions, the perception to the residents is that we are always available. And so in that sense, I don't find this too far-fetched as an idea, but perhaps fleshing out what that amount actually would look like. And I wouldn't feel comfortable using these dollar figures and then still doing a 2% moving forward, but maybe some combination or just a 2%, something along the lines that makes it feasible to where we're acknowledging the work that is done, because I feel just like the rest of you, we all put in as much work as we feel we can, and sometimes more than we can, because we want to do the best job for the city. And in doing so, you do make a sacrifice. And this would just be a way of saying, we understand. And so I don't find it crazy far-fetched. But with all of the other increases at this time, I'm okay also with not necessarily moving forward and maybe continuing a discussion on how we might want to look at this for future councils, future mayors, not necessarily for ourselves.
Okay. Thomas?
It's real fun. Never ever had the opportunity to give myself a raise. My wife won't even raise my allowance. So, as I look at it, and as I hear everybody, I think we all feel the same way. Councilman Morris said it was like $120 or something. I can't remember what he said.
Right there, 164.
Oh, I'm sorry. 164. I didn't know that was figured out. And I don't think that's going to make a difference in anything that I'm going to do. I'm not going to work less or more because of $164. I didn't even know, and I'm sure most of us, nobody knew when they ran for office what we got paid. It was just, you got a stipend and whatever. So I don't think that's as important. The thing that I would say, because there's going to come a time when we won't be on the council, and that if they were to receive similar to what the workforce receives, the COLA, the cost of living, I would feel comfortable with that. If you're going to give me, $2,000 or $3,000 a month, yeah, I might have a different opinion, but I don't. But it's tough doing that. We want to be fair. I worked for the city for 30 years, and I don't know how I'd feel if the council come back and said, "Hey, I got a big raise, and you got your $7.13, so you should be happy." But it's just an awkward position, and I have no problem just leaving it the way it is, and looking at it in a way that might help bring it up a little bit for the, I don't care if we say in the next 3 years or whatever, So I think we all feel the same. I hate sounding redundant here, but I am. I'm good at it. So.
Okay.
Mayor, can I just make a quick comment?
Absolutely.
After I just dawned on me what Tracy was saying. As I read this law, what is required is that there's two things as I'm looking at the law, that we hold a public hearing. If there's going to be any type of increase in compensation for the statutory officers, we hold a public hearing and we publish notice. We've done both of those things. That's all that's required. This ordinance actually doesn't have to be passed. It just has to be, we've done the two things that are required. And so is that what you were saying, Tracy? So yeah, I agree. So you can actually just not take action on this. We've done the two things that are required, and then it just has to be a part of your final budget. In other words, you couldn't do anything more than what is posted here, but you can do less.
Okay. And are you saying that we do not have to pass the resolution then?
It's
or the
never
ordinance,
hurt.
excuse me.
It doesn't hurt if you want to pass it, but it's not required. The two requirements are the public hearing and that it's published, that we publish notice, and we've done both of those things.
Okay, which we can handle once
Correct.
we vote on our budget.
So again, this is kind of like the super official way of doing it, but we've already met the obligations of what are required by the new law tonight.
Okay, all right. Did you have something more to say?
No, how far I could bend this.
Okay. Okay, does anybody else want to comment on this?
Well, I expressed my view in the other meeting, which is also public. So, but I'll say, when we make, I'll say it again, I guess, when we make policy decisions, I'm thinking of the future, not just whoever sits in whatever seat, and creating a fair compensation, stipend, whatever you want to call it. I'm not comfortable with the cost of living because I don't think we hire on here, and it's not an income that I would say I'm dependent on to live on. It's a city employee once told me, well, you guys on the council, you're the biggest volunteers in the city. And so I cost of living increases I see as an employee type thing, along the lines of a full-time employee. I'm comfortable either way, as I said, but looking forward to the future, I think we need to be in line with other cities that are comparable, whether it's now or next year. I think when we upped the mayor's pay a couple of years ago, it hadn't been done for a long time, and the mayor was probably making half of minimum wage with the amount of time she put in. So staying on top of it, like I said, not in favor of a annual cost of living, but maybe a biannual review. Every other year we review the salaries and go from there.
Okay. I appreciate you guys' focus here on this. And once again, I stated in the previous meeting too that this isn't about the pay, it's about the service to the citizens. And certainly all of us are willing to do whatever it takes to kind of make our city move forward in the proper manner and to our best ability. And that's how I feel about this office as well, regardless of the amount of hours it takes and how, ironically, as this city has grown, this position has grown as well, and it is pretty much a full-time job, even though we look at it as a part-time job. In the comparison to the other cities, I appreciate the compensation that was made before, and I'm looking at this more for down the road as well. I think we need to make the adjustment on both sides so that once again we attract folks that come from a mix of life to be able to represent us all within this city. I'm on the fence for myself. I'm struggle with it as well. In all the years I've been on here, it's been tough. I mean, you hate to sit up here and vote, and you do not want to vote yourself a raise. So I struggle because I want to make sure that we have good people going forward as well. You guys are all great. You all deserve it. And I just think that you need to look at this and the intent, what the staff was doing, which was to do a market analysis and really kind of find out where the medium is. So by not doing anything, you're going to be in that same situation going forward for any future council members as well. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Clint, so if we were to pass this ordinance, it's really just like a policy guidance, because we can always just decide differently. So I'd actually be willing, just as a policy matter, to actually make a motion to approve ordinance 2415 with some changes. The hope maybe would recognize some of the comments that have been made. To Councilman Roberts' suggestion to remove the council and the mayor from the cost of living adjustment and the merit pay, to separate them from the regular employees, and to remove the city council pay and to keep the rest of the document as it's currently stated. So it would be to remove the city council pay and everything else would be the same, because the cost of living and merit is zeroed out on this anyway. So the only thing that the motion is to remove the city council pay from the proposed compensation increases and keeping the mayor's potential increase to where it's at. And that's to speak to Councilmember Smith Edmondson's comments about finding Orem, South Jordan, West Valley. We've already done that for the mayor. So we kind of know where we're at. So we wouldn't need to engage in any additional analysis. We could, as a policy matter, make that decision, and that would be my motion.
Second it.
Okay. Do I need to do a roll call vote on this, right? Well, or
yeah.
Okay.
And discussion if there's any.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll entertain the motion in a second. Is there
public hearing too?
I think, didn't we already close the public hearing?
No.
Yeah, close the public
and
hearing.
then close the public hearing.
Okay. Okay, so this is only on item number A of our public hearing. It has been acknowledged that we close the public hearing and adopt resolution 20, hang on, I got the wrong page here. Ordinance 2415 as proposed, minusing the city council pay and not mayor's, huh?
Correct.
Okay.
Discuss.
I will open for discussion. Continue.
So I'd propose an amendment to that motion or a substitute motion. I don't know what you want to call it. I guess a question to Clint or Tracy. There's a Senate bill that tells us we need to do this in a hearing. And I think I've already got the answer from Tracy, but could we do the council and mayor on a separate page, Appendix B maybe, but in the same hearing?
Yes.
Because I would love to pass this. I'm looking at these other titles of these important city employees that do a lot, and it's almost like they shouldn't be on the same page. So I'd make an amendment to that motion that we just separate the mayor and council, and we can have that discussion of those increases prior to adopting the budget. Is that fair?
Would you accept that amendment, Councilmember Watson?
Yeah, I'm just thinking here. I don't think anyone on the dais has any question whether they're going to be accepted. This is just a policy consideration, right? This can always be changed. And so even at the budget, we would be able to change our minds, right?
Yeah, you have to publicly notice. It couldn't go beyond. It would be up to what is here. You couldn't approve an increase above that for anybody on that list, whether it were employees or mayor or council. This is kind of like the up to this point is what you're approving.
Okay.
You could down to zero. whatever you choose.
But I don't necessarily think that I disagree with separating them. I think that they can be two. I just don't know if how that works. How would you substitute them? So you would just create the motion here by creating an appendix B orally?
The way I understood it, everything would be the same as what you made in your motion, with the change of being that mayor and council are in one appendix and then employees are in the other appendix. And I just needed to get clarification on which one was which, who would be appendix A and who would be appendix B.
Okay. Well, I'm fine with that motion. Yeah, I mean.
So just for clarity, we just need to know: do you want mayor and council as A or B? Okay,
Probably A.
Okay,
Yeah.
A and B would be mayor and council, and then appendix B, A, and then appendix B would be all the other employees on the list. Yeah, that's fine. Is that clear for you, Kim?
But are you still voting for it on one motion now?
Yeah, it's all just your exact same motion. It's just basically breaking the exhibit into two exhibits.
So
not a separate ordinance.
On the ordinance.
That's what I'm meaning. I mean,
It's not separate.
It's not
a
separate.
separate
So
ordinance.
I guess my question is, how can you segregate them if it's just one ordinance? Because let's say Tyson doesn't want to vote for the mayor's increase, just hypothetically. He would vote no on the ordinance anyway, because A and B are a part of the same ordinance.
So my thought was, we don't need to pass this ordinance according to the Senate bill, the law.
No.
But I would like to pass the ordinance for the city employees. That's where I said, maybe it doesn't need to be, just strike both of those. Just have them separate. I think they should be.
Yeah, you could do that too.
I'd formally like to pass the ordinance without the mayor and council on it. So that's
the substitute motion.
So that would be your substitute then, is
I
to
guess substitute motion
strike
then,
the
sure.
first two items from ordinance 2415.
So it would be strike that in the appendix and all references in the ordinance itself to mayor and council.
Correct. Do that.
But if you are talking about not the city council of 0, but the mayor an increase, but you're striking them.
I don't know about striking, but moving, because I think we still discuss it before we pass the budget.
But we haven't approved it. You can't go up. Doesn't there need to be the amount to not go above that you mentioned?
Well, it's just simply what we've noticed here. Again, none of this is actually required to be adopted. We've met our obligation under the law.
My original motion wasn't necessarily to speak to anything to do with anything other than striking the city council's pay. If you're voting no on my motion, then it doesn't mean you don't want to move forward in the budget for all those cost of living and merits. You just would say no, you don't want to do it. I'm making the motion to raise the mayor's salary and not raise the city council salary. That's my motion.
And I guess sorry, Mayor, if I may.
Because I guess I don't understand how you could separate them if these are all the same individuals, right? This is what's required in the ordinance. These are all the same statutory employees, these ones that are like elected officials or otherwise that are required to be in the notice. I think you have to take them as all or nothing. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't know how you could separate them.
You can,
if you've noticed it, that they're all the same.
Well, we're not changing the information.
Yeah, you just
right. You do it just the way you did.
Yep.
So they all have to be noticed in this schedule, these positions. Then when you make a motion for how you want to adopt, honestly, the budget, you would say, okay, based on the schedule we saw, we agree with all these. We don't agree with this one. So our motion is to adopt the ordinance minus this, which is exactly what you did.
Right. Okay.
Whether we put them on a Schedule A, a Schedule B, it is still all part of the same presentation.
So I guess my thought behind removing them and talking about it later is we've been talking about this for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. That's as much information as we've had to discuss it, to think about it. But we knew that we want to increase the cost of living and the merit, increases for the employees. So if we can separate them, and if that's legal, then I'd like to do that.
Yeah, I think you can do that.
Madam Mayor,
Any further discussion?
I do have one other thing to just muddy the waters even further. But I'm a math person, so I did do some calculation on just those 3 cities that I mentioned earlier. And the average on the city council would be 121 and 1 cent, as opposed to the 164 and 7 cents that is listed on this, which is lower, but still allowing for, some type of market adjustment. So I just wanted to bring that, again, muddying. But if we're doing the discussion, which we are, then it's best to have all the information now instead of waiting 2 weeks and to do the same discussion that we're doing now.
Good point. So it boils down to, you want to make the market adjustment for mayor and council. We know we all want to take care of our employees. That's not the discussion. So it boils down to, do you make your market adjustment or not?
And then just to that point, what I'm saying is that none of this is actually required. So yes, you can break them up.
I was just trying to get an idea of the policy for this city. That's why I made the motion. Councilman Thomas seconded it. There's been a substitution.
Yeah.
And I'm saying I want it to be voted on as it is.
So you want to reject the substitution?
Yeah.
Well, if the substitute didn't have a second, it dies, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
What was that again? The motion again?
The substitute motion or the
No, so the original motion is simply just to remove the city council's increase in pay and leave everything else the same. Everything else is the same. The mayor's increase, all the cost of living merit for all the other employees are city council, mayor, cost of living and merit at 0. The only thing that's different is we're giving the mayor a market raise and we're not giving the city council a raise. That was my motion.
What's your basis on the mayor?
And I still second it.
Like I mentioned, Councilmember Smith Edmondson said, I think rightly, that Orem, South Jordan, these are kind of the cities that we look at, and I think there's a bigger discrepancy between where you're at on those than where we're at, and so I just don't feel it's necessary for the city council to get a raise. But I do think that if we can get the mayor up to closer to where those other cities are, I think that's more feasible for a market survey. And candidly, you don't vote. So if there's a way for us to get the market to where the mayor's at and you just run the meeting and we can help you out in that way, then I'm happy to do that, because the mayor should be compensated in a market way. So that's why.
Okay, so we have a motion to adopt the ordinance striking the council compensation, leaving it at 0. And do we have a second on that still from Mr. Thomas?
For the third time.
Third time, very good, keep track. Okay, so it's been moved in second. I'll do a roll call vote on this. Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Bloxham?
Yes.
Councilmember Morris?
I want to just mention one other thing. Got to be careful. We're spoiled, this group, elected officials. One of the reasons why we're not here every day, all day, is because the city is well run. And quite honestly, they don't need us to be here telling them what to do. The cities are exists to provide services to our residents, and we don't do that. It's these people on this list and those that work for them that do that. And so I feel totally comfortable still in that I think we're fine on the council level. The mayor's office is a different office. Yeah, she doesn't vote, or the mayor's office doesn't vote. But she, to Bettina's point, she's always available. She needs to always be available. And I keep saying she because the mayor's she, but she or he is the office is a different office. We have a role to play, and it's a very important role, and it's a policy role, and it's the budget. We understand that the mayor needs to be more available, and we need people that. To be compensated for that. And so I feel comfortable with the motion and I vote aye.
Aye. Councilmember Thomas?
I can vote no. If I say it, then I'm done. I just have one comment. I agree with everybody totally, and I'm going to vote in a positive form, but I don't want to have it included in there that I can't come in here and tell Alex what to do. Okay. I mean, I've been looking forward for that for 30 years. And so, but other than that, aye.
Okay, thank you. That was pretty grueling, but that's the purpose of a public hearing. Let's go on to item number B of our public hearing, which is regarding the acceptance of the Layton City budget. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So,
okay, members
Tracy?
of the council, on May 2nd, we set a public hearing for tonight, and we noticed that public hearing related to our budget for fiscal year 2024-2025. So our obligation tonight is to hold a public hearing and allow the public to voice their opinions over the budget for the upcoming fiscal year. No action will be taken during this public hearing or after regarding the budget. That will be at the next meeting after we've taken public hearing. And you can either choose after public hearing tonight to continue the public hearing until our next meeting on June 20th, or you can close this public hearing tonight if there's no reason to leave it open. Just a few brief items to review. The general fund budget in the 2024-2025 budget is just over $46 million. The citywide budget, which includes utility funds, is just over $138 million. We've discussed market and merit and cost of living adjustments in the previous public hearing. $2.4 million in capital equipment, $13.8 million in capital projects, which includes utilities. It's anticipated that sales tax may be slightly lower in the upcoming year, and so that's been adjusted in the budget. And some of the major projects include an emergency communications dispatch center, which is mostly funded by intergovernmental funding, not particularly just the city. West Hillfield Road, Public Works Shop, potential land purchase, a Sugar Street realignment, potential land purchase, and a pretty long list of utility projects, which Mr. Jackson covered a number of those for the sewer fund anyway tonight. A couple of graphics here that just divide out how the different revenues come into the city for 2025. You can see that property tax only makes up 8.6%. There's not a property tax increase proposed in the budget. And sales tax making up just under 25% of that. Under the charges for services category, most of that revenue is related to utilities. That's why it makes up such a large percentage. On the expenditure side, 40% of the expenditures are towards compensation, as was mentioned generously by many council members tonight. It's the employees of the city that make the city run, and the city does compensate the employees at market rates, which is nice so that we can have good employees. 29% for operational expenses. Many times we think of that as salt, sand, asphalt, things like that we need in order to run the city, and then 25% for capital projects. Some of the things that we need to discuss tonight before the public hearing are changes to the budget that was presented on May 2nd. One of those changes is to reduce the amount of funding that's going to be used from the general fund in order to fund the dispatch building, and use funds from the Emergency Medical Services Fund, which is an enterprise fund, otherwise maybe known as the ambulance fund, right? Use $500,000 from that fund towards the dispatch building. As we analyze that more, it makes sense that a lot of the calls that the dispatch center takes are medical related calls for an ambulance. An additional change proposed, $32,800 to cover kind of a glitch in what Utah retirement system is doing. They've caused so that the employee would have to pay part of their retirement cost. And as a city, as management of the city, we didn't necessarily support that. And so we're proposing to you that a stipend be put in place to help those employees if they're with us at the end of the year. Also, to add to the tentative budget, it's proposed $129,477 for an emergency manager position. As was mentioned in a previous meeting, that position or those duties were filled by the assistant city manager, management services director, some other individuals in the past, and a number of those have retired and moved on. And so it would be good to put this position in the fire department with funding coming from emergency medical services. Also, in addition to the budget would be $8,548 for a crossing guard at Angel and Weaver. And the last addition to the budget that wasn't included in the tentative budget relates to the 8.2% utility rate increase for the sewer fund, as Mr. Jackson mentioned previously in his presentation. And so an 8.2% increase in the sewer rate would generate an estimated $915,000 in the 2024-2025 budget. And so at this time, Mayor, I would turn it back to you to open a public hearing and accept public comment.
Okay, Council, can I get a motion to open the public hearing and at this time?
I move that we open a public hearing to discuss the budget for 24-25.
Thank you very much. Okay, if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the budget, you're more than welcome, or anyone else. Council, if any of you wish to deliberate more on this, you're welcome to as well.
Just had a question, Tracy. Just you might not have the budget right there, but in the water fund, talks about use and appropriation of net assets, and there's a budgeted amount, and then there's an estimated amount. And the budgeted amount was $3.9 million, and the estimated amount was $23 million. Is that is that just a typo, or is that? And I can hand it to you if you'd like. I just was wanting some clarification about what that was, because it was well beyond what was budgeted. It was 167 right here.
Oh, yeah. That, I would say that it's a typo.
Okay.
Good catch.
No, I'm happy that it's a typo, because I was like, I didn't know what that number was. So, okay. Yeah, no worries. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something, because I was racking my brain trying to figure out what that could have included.
So that would be an additional change to the budget document that we would want to point out next meeting, would be that it's in the current year, we're not estimated to use that much money, right?
Okay, is there any other questions?
Yeah, just one.
Sure.
The crossing guard, that's under the police budget?
Yeah. Yep. And police patrol.
Yeah, thanks.
Any others? Okay, Council, you have two options as pointed out earlier. We can go ahead and keep the public hearing open until our next scheduled meeting regarding the budget and close it at that time and then vote on the budget. Or you're welcome to go ahead and close the public hearing now. And then at the next regularly scheduled meeting, when we go to adopt the budget, we can just deal with the budget at that time. So knowing that the ball's in your court, I'll allow you to make the motion as you see fit.
Is there an advantage of either? I mean, I don't understand why. I mean, we'd leave it open, fine. I mean, people can comment. I always lean that way.
Yeah.
But people can comment anyway,
Yeah.
I think, if they call in and want to talk to Tracy or someone. But
the advantage to leaving it open for the public would be that officially it will be in the public hearing section of the next agenda, and they would have an opportunity to stand and speak to it. The disadvantage for a council might be that you get confronted with a question that you would want to research more, whereas we've noticed the public hearing and the public has had an opportunity to come tonight and had many people come and commented. Then you have a time frame to be able to consider those comments before we have to legally adopt the budget. The problem with accepting comment, and that's why I've always presented that this meeting and then have a 2-week period for us to take into account any consideration or changes that you would like to make. If for some odd reason, a number of people showed up on the 20th because we leave it open and they make comments that cause you concern, then we run up against a deadline of not being able to adopt the budget before the end of the month. And then we would have to hold possibly a special meeting in order to do that. And if at that time you also determined to leave the public hearing open so that perhaps those people could get response, it kind of escalates into a potential issue, in my opinion. But it's completely up to you. But that is the reasoning, at least my reasoning, behind holding this public hearing so that there is time for you to consider any comments. Given that there were no comments, then I guess it's just up to you whether you'd like to leave it open till next time or not.
so I guess I should know, because this is the third time I've done it, but we don't take public comment. Generally, we don't take public comment on the night when we approve the budget.
We've left it open some years, and some years we've closed it. So considering that we didn't have any public comments tonight, then it probably wouldn't matter if you left it open. I think the general public would just need to understand that it's hard for you as a council to take public comment the night that you intend to adopt the budget. And for that reason, we've held the meeting tonight, because we want to be more transparent and give people an opportunity to make a comment and then have you actually consider it. There are other entities that don't do that. They hold a public hearing the night they're going to adopt the budget. In my opinion, that doesn't say much for wanting to accept public comment. So that's why we do it the way we do.
You said it's difficult for us, but I would say it's difficult for you and your staff. So, if there were proposed changes on the night of so I'd be in favor of closing the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Was that a motion or just a comment? Councilmember Roberts.
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
For the second time, I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing for the Layton City budget fiscal year 2024-2025.
Conversation.
I can open it up for discussion.
Thank you. And the only reason, and I think we've done both since I've been here. To your first thing you said before you made the motion, I agreed with that. The idea of leaving it open so that the residents, whenever they find out there's a public hearing and there's a budget that's being passed, I want someone to show up when we're actually adopting it to be able to make a comment. And I think we would be responsive to that. And we may not make the decision that they want, but I would hope that we would have a chance to let them speak. So I don't know.
And be on the record.
Yeah, and be on the record, and we could be responsive to that. If we close it tonight, then it's kind of it's baked. So I don't know. It's a tough one.
Well,
We've done both.
I'll just make one quick comment here, and that is the fact that we've certainly put the schedule out there. We've let people notice what our intent is and the timeline. But I think the biggest takeaway tonight is the fact that certainly any questions that people have regarding our budget, that they're more than welcome to call into the city over the next 2 weeks and talk to the staff. And Tracy is more than willing to entertain any of the questions or concerns they have as well. So, but I'll turn it back over to you for discussion. Do you have a comment as well?
I just have a clarifying question. We close the public hearing tonight. At our next meeting, where does the adoption of the budget go on the agenda? Does it still go under public hearing because we have no longer had a public hearing? So at that moment, it's a consent item. And if people want to comment during citizen comment, they can still make their comments during that time, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? That's a maybe.
I just think we should leave it open. I just think it's this is what we do, and we represent the people. And if they have a comment, and I mean, we might not agree, and we might not. We may have an answer. I mean, we've got pretty smart people in the room that can help answer questions, and everyone's busy. And I don't know how people get their information, and if they even know we're doing this. And so it gives them one more opportunity to at least be part of the process. Except Tom here.
Okay.
He knows.
I think all of you have had a chance now to weigh in on the discussion. I'm going to go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. No, I don't have to do a roll call on this, right? Because we're not adopting a budget. Yeah. So the proposal is to go ahead and leave the public. No, wait, excuse me. What we're voting on right now is to close the public hearing and that's it. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All oppose. Now I'm going to do a roll call vote. Starting out with Councilmember Thomas.
No.
Okay.
Like what you say.
I'm doing a roll call now.
I didn't know if no was allowable word. If it is, okay, no.
Okay. Councilmember Smith Edmonton.
Yes.
Councilmember Morris.
No.
Councilmember Bloxham.
No.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Kim, what's our count? Okay. The motion fails to close the public hearing at this time. Therefore, we will keep the public hearing open regarding the Layton City budget for fiscal year 2024-2025 until our next scheduled meeting. So, knowing that that's the case, that's the last item on our published agenda. However, I have asked the staff if they could give us an update on some of the comments that we had received from various citizens in the past couple of council meetings. So, Alex, are we still going to have? Do you have?
Yeah, Steve's still here. I thought
please?
Steve had left, but they're engineering related questions. And what I think maybe while Steve's coming up, I mentioned this to the mayor, that when citizens come before here and raise issues, the staff always takes information and contacts them. So all these people have been contacted, but we wanted to provide that so you were aware of it as well, and maybe others who heard the discussion and were curious. But we always reach out to the individual people and communicate with them, and so they're aware of it.
Okay, thank you.
I'm back. All right. I think I had 3 items that Alex asked me to address. So the first one was the 150 West and the complaints about the road condition. We are currently in the design of replacing that water line. So the water line has been a problem. It's been breaking. We obviously don't want to throw good money after bad and put a road on top of a water line that's just going to break and ruin the road. So we have that in design right now. We have a contractor who's working on another water line project in the city, and we're anticipating that if they have some time to fit that in the schedule, we might be able to squeak that in and then get the road paved as well this year. So we have talked at length with the gentleman that came in, and he was going to talk to his neighbor. But that one is on the list. It was on the list prior, and we were trying to get to it. Obviously, some contractors have more time than others, and so we're working towards that. The light at Hill Boulevard and Gordon Avenue. There is I believe the youth got hit by a car there. Anyway, we have a light. It's a 40-foot pole with the luminaire similar to the one that is on Hillfield Road that we worked with UDOT in conjunction with. So the base for that was poured this week. We need to let that base cure. They're running the conduit and everything like that. So we're ready to stand that light up, and then we're going to need to make the power connections. But that is in the process. It's taking a little bit longer than we wanted, but it should be a great addition to that intersection until sometime when the warrant. We did look at a warrant to see if something else needed to be done there, and there's not enough pedestrian crossing there to warrant something more than just trying to improve the lighting in that intersection. Is that what you were going to ask? Okay. We do have that in our transportation master plan thing as well to look at future improvements there, but just for now, that's what we're planning is that light. And then the other one was 2125 East Gordon. We've received complaints on that one before. We've looked at that. We actually collected some traffic data last week. We're collecting more traffic data next week as well. The preliminary numbers do not appear to warrant a signal there yet. It is on the master plan in the future to have a signal installed there once the traffic meets one of the warrants that we have, and there's about 10 different warrant studies that we can do, but we're still processing the warrant, so I can't tell you that it doesn't meet warrant yet because we need to go through that whole process, but the preliminary traffic numbers don't show that there is enough vehicular volume there for a signal. What we do know is that there is quite a bit of speeding going on at the bottom of the hill, not quite as much at the kind of top of the hill, even though it is higher than we would like, but down at the bottom towards the Andy Adams trailhead entrance, there's quite a bit of that. And I think it's kind of a function of the grade of the road and people not having any conflicts there. So we've reached out to our police department, our traffic, safety people, and they're working with us to kind of address that. And so I know there's a lot of complaints about the sight distance on that corner. It is a tighter sight distance than what most people are comfortable with, but it does meet all of the standards. It does meet all of the requirements that we have. That's one of the reasons we try to not design to the minimum, because this is the type of situation that you get into. There are grades on that road that make it a little bit more challenging, but we do encourage people to, when they stop at the stop sign, then to inch forward until they can see far enough to make sure that that is the actual traffic code, if you will. If you read the state code, it says you stop at the stop bar and then you move into the intersection until you can see. And so that's what we encourage people to do at that intersection. But we will continue to monitor it, and it is on our list with the master transportation plan as well. So,
well, and on that same intersection too, there is another way out if you can actually go to the north, correct?
Yeah,
Which would be much safer.
You can exit out 2125 to Oak Ridge Drive and take alternate routes, either east or west on that road. Maybe if you want to go down to Emerald or you want to go up towards Cherry.
Okay.
So,
well, thank you for that update. I know it's good for everyone to know that we do take their comments serious, and that we appreciate the staff addressing it. But then at the same time, as a council, we appreciate you informing us as well. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. In fact, if any of you wanted, I drove by Gordon today actually and noticed the pouring is still formed up there on the corner for the light. Yeah, it's still in place. So, I mean, people can see where you're putting the light is what I'm trying to say.
I believe it was poured on Tuesday, so it's still, I don't even know if they've stripped the forms off it yet. So
they hadn't earlier today, but
yeah.
Madam, may I make a question?
Sure.
Still traffic, different area.
Okay.
The Main Street, Hillfield, rollabouts,
through turns.
Yes.
Knuckle turns.
Yeah, it's been 10 years. I don't know. Is there? My question is: does UDOT, in conjunction with the city, evaluate later on? Is this working? Is it? What's the?
I'll have to follow up and see if they've done an evaluation recently. But I know immediately after they did before counts and after counts, and there was a substantial increase in the amount of cars that actually are moving through the intersection now, and the delays went down substantially as well. And then I believe there was a follow-up a couple years afterwards. And to be honest, I know people think that it's a little crazy, but it's an innovative design, and it has solved not all of the traffic problems, but a lot of the traffic problems we were seeing there. If you recall, there were half-mile traffic jams in that area, and so the delays have gone down substantially, and we're moving more cars through that intersection than we ever have before.
That's good to hear, because one of the thoughts is that it's you have less traffic, or it seems to be moving because there's less traffic because people are just avoiding it because they don't know how to do it.
No, that's not.
It's not the case.
The volumes of cars going through that intersection are substantially more than what were there before we actually.
I'd appreciate if you have that information. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'll follow up with UDOT and see if I don't know if they have anything, but we could certainly.
And it's us and Draper. Are there any other?
There is one in Draper as well. I think I'll be honest. We've learned some things over the years. There's people a lot smarter than me, and so we try and
not very many.
We try and avoid creating. Thank you for that, but there's plenty out there. We try and avoid creating those same situations over and over again, if that makes sense. So, for example, 2700 West, we just built that new interchange. We intentionally moved our intersections further away to make sure that those types of things don't keep occurring over and over again. So I think you'll see less of those, but there are some places where that is kind of the situation that makes the most sense and without impacting all of the surrounding areas. So
I think one of the comments regarding that intersection, though, that we did hear was the striping and the notification that when you're in that center lane, that whether you're going straight or are you automatically in to do the through U-turns. So I think that when you do talk to UDOT on
that as well, we did talk to the UDOT group that is over all of that striping, and they've done an evaluation, and it is fairly well striped. It's just not. Again, it's an innovative design, and so they looked at it and said, could we add something there or do something more? And they felt like all of the striping meets all of the MUTCD standards, and adding more striping or more signs would probably create more confusion. And so that's kind of where it's at right now. We'll continue to monitor and look at the flow of that area, but unfortunately, as you come under the bridge westbound, we've asked if we could move people over a full lane to create what you're asking, which is keep people out of that left turn lane. But the crossing traffic from the eastbound vehicles would be too close to those westbound turners as well. So
what about before you actually get to Main Street? Could they paint maybe an arrow on which one is the one that's the straight through drive? Because I think that's where the confusion comes in. Because people are over here in the second left lane. Once they cross over Main Street, they realize, oh, I don't want to turn. I want to get over. And then that's where you get the confusion.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they can maybe paint some arrows on just before you get to Main Street.
We can talk to them, but I know that their concern is that we don't want people confused and making left turns at that intersection, because that was what was happening immediately when we opened it. Was people were still trying to make those turns. So happy to.
Well, and that's why I'm saying at least do the straight through arrow. Because that's the
all
issue.
of the lanes are straight through. It's after the intersection that then you either have to do the through turn or not. But I'm happy to chat with them. I'll reach back out on counts and just make that suggestion.
Something's weird there because not yesterday, day before, I'm in the lane, and next thing I know, I got two cars that could have hit my mirrors. And I don't know why, but all of a sudden I'm like, somebody's not in the right place.
Somebody's drifting.
Well, it wasn't drifting. No, they were in a lane, and all of a sudden, I don't know if the lane changed. I was going to go back and see what the deal was, but I thought I was just going to get hit by two cars. So there's something odd there. I don't know what it is.
We'll talk to them. We'll bring it up and see if they have any more suggestions. So.
Is this an open transportation forum?
We're covering it all tonight.
We're not talking about tractors.
Close. No, I've had a question. Maybe it's a discussion to have, maybe with the whole council. But now we have a new highway on the west side of our city, and I know the time's going to come when I-15 has a major backup, and everybody's going to be trying to get from I-15 to 177. And I'm wondering about truck traffic on our streets and what is approved. Is Antelope Drive our only east-west from end to end truck traffic?
I believe that's the only technically approved one, but we do have a truck route map, and we can revisit that if you'd like and kind of have that discussion.
So my thought is, will 2700 West, and maybe that's a discussion for us to have, will we approve or allow trucks on that route? So maybe for future discussion.
Yeah, we can look at that.
Okay. Thank you, guys. That's some good unfinished business to take care of tonight. So I'm willing to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Sorry. Make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay. All in favor? Need a second? Yeah, I don't, but go ahead. All right. Okay. Wrap the gavel. We've never wrapped it. Say motion adjourned, or meeting adjourned.
Motion adjourned. Meeting adjourned.
Hallelujah.